let's start with what are the current trends at the moment in 2023 that are going to make events a success.
I would say one thing which we are majorly seeing rapidly evolving is the need for hybrid integration. We were forced to adopt that kind of a scenario due to the pandemic, which has given birth to a lot of new tech that had an opportunity now with the demand to rapidly grow in terms of the infrastructure and the connectivity and the cross-platform integration, which has driven possibilities of events like these to be accessible in real time for people across the globe.
With the start of the pandemic, there was not only one turbo, there was two turbos within the industry, actually getting us onto the forefront. And whilst we came out of the pandemic, all that new technology has now been redeveloped and been reused in an extreme short time frame. So we have seen technology that we have used before pandemic, within the pandemic, now converging. And this converging model works actually quite well and enhances a lot of the events that I'm attending.
We saw a lot of virtual platform development during the pandemic. People had to go that way, there wasn't a choice. And now we're back to live, basically. Are you guys still seeing demand for hybrid events, the live plus the virtual, or are we just really back to live completely?
I think that we'll never go back to live only, because with the advancement of tech in today's age and time, it works parallel with several industries. So 5 to 7 years ago, we were still in the era of 3G transitioning to 4G infrastructure when it comes to the telecom industry, right? And when it comes to streaming and live events, again, we're so dependent on the infrastructure that's available in the market. Today, we are on 5G and the convergence to 6G, right? That's just increasing the bandwidth, increasing the capabilities of managing high amount of data that's being transferred over cellular devices, which comes down to the point that Stefan mentioned. It's not about adding on tech into events. It's about the seamless integration of technology for a very smooth experience for the end user. If you tell the end user, now you come into my virtual event and now you have to know how to play, a PlayStation game or a Windows game with all these keyboard movements and, create your avatar and move around. That's too cumbersome for the average user. When I say the average user, you're talking about 10 to 15% of gamers who are the average user who know how to do that stuff. You want someone to plug and play and be able to engage and interact, right? So that's what's changed over the years. And this is, I think, a topic we discussed. I was on a panel, I think, 7 years ago with Stefan, while we talked about live events having the option of going hybrid, going to a concert remotely, right? And that's when I was the only one, I think, on the panel for it, while everyone else from the live industry was against it. And, well, that's what has happened today.
So you've gone full circle, right? So did you believe him when he said that?
Actually, yes. So I went to a couple of technology cycles in my life, coming from video projectors that was with very low output into high resolution video projectors, into LED walls, etc., etc. So you always can see there's something new on the horizon that you haven't thought about yet. So that's why I totally agree with Sujoy. And coming back to the initial question is, so there's a lot of stuff what we see when we talk hybrid or virtual, etc., that should be now renamed. That's more the remote production of an event. So when we see people calling in from all over the world into events, that's remote production. That's neither virtual nor hybrid. You will see more people down in the actual show floor or event floor. You will not see many people watching it on screen. That's something completely different. That's called then OTT and TV distribution over the internet, etc. But that's a completely different topic. When we talk about events and technology, it's for the people in the room. And we have seen a drastic shift in speakers speaking from home, speakers creating their own studios at home. There is speakers who work now with a little system as low as $10,000 that can give you a green screen, and then you can transport yourself into something in there, and then you have a direct connection with the producer in the conference or in the event, and you can be transformed into the stage or onto the stage if you have the capable, hologram technology or something like that.
That's interesting, because it kind of means that although somebody's speaking from home, you're still going to need light, you're still going to need decent sound as well, aren't you? So that interaction between a live audience, a virtual audience, or even in terms of broadcast, something as big as Eurovision, for example, how important is that for audiences, and how important is that for the event organizer, the technologist, to be able to design those kind of shared experiences, if you want to call them that?
What really changes is the way people consume it, right? So in the earlier days, when something was broadcasted, and they call it, we have so many million viewers. How was this estimated? There's no algorithm behind that. It's just the broadcast channel that calculates the basis on the number of streams that are going to the different set-top boxes, right? There's no real data. Did the people really enjoy it, or was it just playing on some TV while the person was doing something else, right? There's no real data. Now with the technology that's in hand, you can actually evaluate what kind of engagement, how long did you have eyeballs on screen. There's so much more data that can give you insight as to how good was your show and how could you improve it next time. Not just by these false numbers that give you an impression that you had so many million viewers and then you charge sponsors, a crazy amount for having a spot on that show.
Well, we have seen when we started within the virtual event world, May 2020, basically 3 years back. Everyone was setting up a stream, etc., and then you had viewers. There was zero viewer interaction. So yes, there was the odd question and answer box, but when we have 2,500 or 3,000 people attending, and we had these people attending virtual webinars, seminars, etc., so no one is asking a question, or maybe 2 out of 2,000. And that's not good enough. Then your content was maybe wrong, but how do you know your content was wrong? Because you can't see. So now these days, over the last 3 years, software-based applications went that far. There is an algorithm who can actually look into things where people switched from through websites. So you can now measure that. You can actually measure attendance. You can also get feedback with certain forms of software. We have now applications when you create content for on-demand viewing, that you can actually correctly see when someone stopped watching and when someone started watching again. So it's very, very interesting that you
That is interesting, because when I was at Eventech Live in November in London, there were 2 companies there. One was Zenus Biometrics, and they do an emotional engagement. They use facial recognition at live events to create this picture of reactions to the content, to the conference, to walking around the show. And then there was another company there, I can't remember their name, but they used the webcam to do the same facial recognition, emotional, they call it a happy mapper or something like that.
You can do this now, the same thing with museums.
Yeah.
So you can build a heat map of a museum, you can see what artifacts you are exhibiting are interesting for people and which are not. So you can actually decide, I don't need to rip off the whole exhibition, I can change simple parts.
Yeah, you can use it here even to see where the dead areas are in real time and then activate them somehow, right? Yeah. So if we're talking about audience experience, which way are you going, Sujoy? VR, AR?
Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, technology that has evolved from an existing piece of source of hardware has always succeeded. Which means, for example, we are used to wearing glasses already. That's been part of our life for decades, right? Now you add an element of AR into it as a consumer. It just makes it so much easier to penetrate into the market. If I told you your pair of glasses that you're wearing today could be upgraded for a small price, and while you're walking around, you would know I'm Sujoy because I've registered at this event. So that's a cool feature, but it's so seamlessly integrated. You're walking past, I don't know, a stand, and you see a pop-up saying, Black Tracks demo in 30 minutes. That's information. But that's so seamlessly integrated into the experience because it's a pair of glasses you're wearing and walking around the floor, right? So that's AR for the consumer. For VR, for the consumer, the hardware has to reach into millions of households today. for it to really make sense. But from a B2B point of view, there's been great advancements because now you're now introducing it into classrooms. It can change the game when it comes to health and safety. People being trained offline in virtual scenarios with real field using haptic suits, for example, before going onto an oil rig and putting their life at risk. So all of those scenarios, even sports rehab and so much more, and that was part of my presentation yesterday, which would be a game changer in the B2B space when it comes to VR kits. So I see in both the technologies a very quick advancement that's going to happen in AR for the consumer and VR on B2B. And then eventually all of those worlds will converge.
What kind of other technologies are out there that will achieve that goal of getting them to participate? Do they need to be expensive technologies, or are they just kind of basic, set up an Instagrammable scene over there in the corner? I mean, what have we got to pick from?
Why does a person do an event? It's to communicate a message. There's always a key message and there's some takeaway from the organizer and from the exhibitors or from the participants or from the speakers, right? So soon as there's an element of connectivity between all of these channels for people to take back information and then make use of it, using AI on the back end based on your preferences, making engagement with audience much simpler. Today we're talking about apps, right? But the app is completely dependent on the user filling in his information on his likes and then being able to communicate and set up his meetings, right? That has a big scope of evolution when it comes to the integration of AI, making sure that the matchmaking is done by someone else and not just me getting 300 requests from exhibitors and visitors to wanting to meet me with no logic on why am I getting that request, what's the interest, have I missed out on an opportunity? I don't know, right? In most cases I leave an event and for weeks later on the event app I'm still reading messages, and in hundreds. So that has to evolve. So I think when that would be a major game changer with the integration of AI, the integration of beacons, integration of technology that allows people to pick up the information they require, take back, and then make use and have something tangible with them after the event is over and not just, okay, see you next year on the floor.
Stefan, what about you? Have you got any tech choices that are going to create more interactivity besides AR and VR is going to excite people, get them to engage?
I think the biggest interaction point that I see is always the human factor. It's for a reason why my events industry night out, the EINO, and the night out for the pro event industry and the event industry, that we are still meeting in person. There is no other way to conduct a business. There is no other way to keep up the camaraderie that we have. Because if someone calls me and someone contacts me and asking me for a favor, how do I know this person? If I meet people on industry networking events, etc., or I get introduced, I get matched with someone introduces me to someone, that is a thing that I remember. And I remember that, and because I remember that, I will always be nice to that person. There is no technology in the world who can actually override the human interaction factor.
Okay, I agree with that. So that's why we love live events, right? What's the one piece of technology you're going to recommend to transform their events?
I would say, which is my favorite toy right now, so that's the volumetric 3D, so the Dragon O, and with its APIs to integrate ChatGPT within events in a very affordable way to engage with the audience and collect information. I think that's my favorite toy for the season.
VR for pre-production.
Okay, there you go. And we're done. Thank you very much to Stefan. Thank you very much to Sujo, and thanks for coming and joining us. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.